What's up guys, my name is Rex Chamshan and today I'm bringing you Khora Prime. Khora is an insane loot frame and probably the best single target loot frame. We get that clear. So there's a lot of variety with loot frames and Warframe, but we're going to try to get into the nuances of Khora and why she is so important in most situations. Khora can do it all. She can do it all. She has Ensnare, she has insane CC, and she has an insane stat stick whip, which just melts targets, especially when you're using her for. Before we get into the build, let's just quickly look at what Khora does. Let's go over the abilities and how they influence each other, because it's going to be really important. I'm trying to keep it quick and important, just to understand how this frame works and how we're going to try to utilize her. Let's look at her passive here first. Khora is something special. Khora is the only frame that comes with a pet, and her passive is basically Venari. So what her pet does here, you get 15% bonus movement speed anytime she's active, and if she's not active, and if she's dead, she'll reappear after 15 seconds. You'll see it here, I don't have any extra posture mods on, I just have what the default mods on, what the game gives you. I did put some survivability mods on Venari here, and she will just go up and attack enemies. You can put on an elusive posture mod if you don't want her attacking anyone, but you cannot take Venari off. It's just not possible. For those of you wanting special playstyles, you're just stuck with her. Let's get into Khora's first ability. The most important thing about kits we're going to be building is Whipclaw. Whipclaw is Khora's bread and butter. What you're basically doing, it's an explosive effect and you're just hitting Whipclaw with her one. It's like doing a extra melee attack. You can't take it out like a melee weapon and use it. The only way you're hitting your melee is through your one. It stacks up like any normal melee weapon. Here it goes by stacks at 10. And it also synergizes with the Narman Focus School. That was just low range, the basic 100 range you get from Khora, and this is 280 max range. And you see here, I extra took a wide arena to showcase this. It hits about in further range, but I'll have to go into explaining more of this ability during the build process and while we're looking at stuff like this, because it's influenced by so many other factors and also her other abilities. Of course, the Whipclaw also has an augment. This is called Accumulation Whipclaw, and if you hit 3 enemies, you're granted 35% damage, and this is stackable up to 10, so 350%. It does not multiply with ability strengths, it's additive, so building tons of ability strength doesn't make any sense, and it decays after about 10 seconds, but your stacks of your Whipclaw will decay before this one decays, so you're almost always going to have it if you have that 12 counter, and it's very much essential for our Khora build and for any others you'll be building. Khora's 2 is Ensnare. You have to cast it on a single target and it will pull in enemies with about a second delay. Every time you hit a Whipclaw on that, it will reset the CC effect. In this clip, I'm showcasing it. Be aware this is max range. This is 280 range. I'm just trying to showcase the full potential of what we can pull in here. And if I hit a Whipclaw on these targets now, I'm recasting the CC, but I still have to find a single target to cast it on. And if we go back and go over to this other guy standing around and I recast it over there, everybody gets moved over here. It's not the best CC. It's not like an instant pull like you get from Mag or this larva from Nidus that pulls pretty quick. And it's also not affected by, so the pull speed, you can't affect that. No casting speed, nothing will help you there. Her 3 is also Venari. What you're doing here is you can switch between 3 different modes. With the normal attack mode, you have a heal mode, and you kind of have like a defense mode. You can switch between those 3. And Venari will still go around attacking stuff for you. Well, quickly showcasing when you're just standing there what Venari does. The animation style is really cool, but for me, that's about it. Also, switching between those 3 modes, it's not that special. And I don't see the big potential here. This will be your subsume ability. You will be putting other stuff on here because you really don't need it. For anybody interested, if you subsume Khora, you get Ensnare. That can be really interesting on some other builds. Of course, this ability also has an augment, but Ensnare doesn't. So the Venari augment, what this does, it gives you like a bonus life anytime you're using it, and the pet will just die in Khora's place. How this is set up, I only see a few few angles where this can work is specific missions where where you're soloing something and you cannot die, like in an HSL or arbitration. But in the grand scheme of things, and with most builds for Khora, it's not going to make any sense, especially when you're playing these big missions. You're usually not on your own. I hope you're still with me when it comes to the explanations. This is the last ability and the most interesting one. This is the Strangledome. What you're doing here, you're casting like a big metal sheet net dome, and you have just enemies floating around like crazy up top. Again, I'm going to show you here the max ability range version. You're seeing all these guys flying around here. And what you can also do here is, that's why I'm going to get into the build, especially with Whipclaw later. Anytime you hit a Whipclaw on an enemy, basically copy pasting the damage over to all the other enemies affected by Strangledome. So Strangledome is going to go down here now, but if I recast it and I hit an enemy with Whipclaw, casting Ensnare on one of the targets in the net also gives us a little bit of extra damage here. But if I cast Whipclaw on one of these, even the guy on the ground, anybody who is in this dome gets hit by it. So that's the really interesting thing with the Strangledome and how you can get a lot of targets down. But the most interesting aspect here is, you'll also see, only Whipclaw does it. If I'm shooting single targets here, damage doesn't get transferred. But the most interesting thing, and the reason why we play Khora, is Pilfering Strangledome. This gives us 65% of dropping additional loot. So I'll talk about in a second which kind of loot and stuff this affects. I just want to do a little discrepancy of Necros. So two different things. Necros, when he desecrates enemies for extra loot, he will split body parts up and loot them. So you're getting double loot. So you have a chance to loot both of these. You have a chance to split these and loot them. When you're using Khora, you get 65% drop chance on a single loot encounter. That's why also the synergy out of Khora and Necros is so important and interesting. But I just want to make that difference clear, that you're not like double looting like with Necros. You're increasing drops from already dropped loot pools. So to look at Khora and her build and anything we're running here, let's hop right into here first. So this is the build. As 3 Forma on here, you can probably do this in 2. You can even do this without the Exilis, so it's 2 Forma, no Exilis. So for the important thing here, the basics we want to be running. It's Pilfering Strangledome, it's Streamline, it's the Accumulating Whipclaw, it's Fleeting Expertise, and Prime Continuity. Technically, anything else, you can switch around a little bit. I'll get right into this. For me, because I've seen a lot of builds with Prime Flow, for me, I've seen the best effects if we have extreme high max efficiency. Because look at this drain on our 1. 6.25 for casting stability. Usually it's 25. Look at this drain on our 4. 25. Look what happens if I take Streamline off and I'm just running Fleeting Expertise. 40. 10. That's incredible. So we really want to... No, I didn't find it. We really want to be running max efficiency. And then you don't have to care about things like Arcane Energize or Zenuric as much. You can either run Arcane Energize or Zenuric, because I don't have a great other augment mod to run, got an arcane mod to run here. I'm running Energize, so I can go with whatever focus school I want to. For our aura mod, we're going with Growing Power. You could play Shield Gating with Khora, but Growing Power is gonna do the deal, especially when using your weapons, and you get a little bit of extra ability strength. With her, you don't have to mod tons of ability strength. Don't need tons of strength, don't need tons of range, because your Whipclaw is doing most of it. Anything else isn't affected by range, as long as is affected by range and strength, as long as you have this on. You want to be running Prime Continuity, because ability duration is pretty high here. I already said, hey, we're getting rid of our 3. We're putting Nourish on, just as a little bit of a buffer. You can put other things on, but the way we're playing Khora here, you don't want to be having to focus on a billion other things. Nourish also gives you energy bonus here. You're getting viral damage. You're getting a bunch of bonuses through Nourish, and it stays up through high duration. Counter on here is duration 48 seconds. Our Strangledome holds up for duration of 38 seconds. So you can cast 2 of these, by the way. So we don't have to refresh a ton, and we already have no energy expense. This is roughly the build. Let's look into everything else. All of this, everything else, except for maybe the Whipclaw, is a recommendation. Not saying this is perfect. And remember the fact when we're going for some of these mods, and even if we're going through Steel Path and farming, we're going for kills, not the overkill. We don't have to do damage cap on every kill. I'm trying to keep this kind of efficient with everything you're running on mods, and I'm trying to keep it cheap with Informer. 2 Former here, and sadly, another 2 Former on the Whipclaw. Let's look into the Whipclaw here. This is the second most important thing. You want to be going... This is the actual stat stick version. So we're running Blood Rush because that's how we're getting our critical chance, because we're always going to be having 12 combo up. Same as Condition Overload is for the stat stick damage, Sacrificial Steel for that crit chance, Organ Shatter, crit damage. So it's crit chance, crit damage, and we're wanting to be running, we're getting all our damage through the combo mod. So we're already on 12 combo and we have Blood Rush on. That's going to be enough. Just like Weeping Wounds, we get another status just through our combo multiplier. With Gladiator Might, it synergizes with the other Gladiator mod we have on for the Gladiator Finesse for a little bit of melee critical chance. That's the main things you want to be running for melee mods. Critical chance, critical damage, melee damage. 2 another status chance mods, we want to be kind of modding for Magnetic, because Magnetic will pull in even more enemies anytime someone's affected by it. Same thing with Melee Vortex. Melee Vortex doesn't even have to be on the max level to achieve this. So for Venari Prime herself, it's not very important. I want to have Fetch on here. I maybe want to have Primed Animal Instinct. If you want to run any links or any extras, Tech Enhance, anything extra, put it on here. I put a Catalyst on here, but we do not need Forma on her. Fetch is essential for me. Primed Animal Instinct is essential for the Loot Raider. Anything else doesn't really matter. We're trying to not make, since we're already subsuming Venari, or the Venari ability 3, we don't want to be spending extra Forma here. Same thing goes for the Claws. If you have Claw mods, great. If not, doesn't matter too much. If you don't want her interrupting at all, run Elusive Posture. Her Claws already come with Balanced Posture here. For our own pet, this is where it gets interesting. Of course, you're playing a Loot Frame. You want to get your hands on a Smeeta Kavat. You want to be running a Smeeta Kavat. These are the essential mods. I'm not going to get into how the Smeeta works herself too much, but you're getting extra loot. And another mod that's really interesting you always want to be running is Loyal Retriever for that extra 13% of resource drops. You do not, it's my personal opinion, don't run Prosperous Retriever unless you're farming credits. For just playing the game for how Khora is intended, you're big farming resources, you're not going to be farming credits because Prosperous Retriever gives you that extra credit pickup, but you're not getting any resources. So I'll rather take a lower chance on credits and get all the resources I can take. Here also Primed Animal Instinct and Fetch. Anything else you want to put on here is up to you. Same thing with the Claws. Doesn't matter too much. Put on whatever you want. For her weapons, her main, for the main weapon, your main, won't matter too much, your primary. Since this is just my Fenmoy build, you can build anything you want to, but her melee and her secondary are the important ones here. Here you want to be running either Nucor, or you can even run an Epitaph. That's my recommendations for these general ranged secondaries. This is my Nucor build, also not perfect, but if you want to run something similar to this spreads viral heat and radiation, it's roughly what you're aiming at. For my melee, this is where it gets important. This is your stat stick. So same thing as I said with the Whipclaws, you want to run melee damage, critical chance, and critical damage. Find a ribbon with a high disposition. This has a disposition that's 4, means it's really good, or the ribbon's gonna count a lot. And I have a decent ribbon on here. My combo duration doesn't matter too much because with Khora, it's not gonna count this mod's combo duration. It's gonna count my basic Whipclaw, so it's not gonna like cut me off in the middle of this. And even these 5.5 seconds are no big deal. So we have melee damage and critical damage here, and then I modded it a little bit towards viral. And then for you want to be running melee duplicate, and I'm of course running a Exodia Contagion because it's my favorite kind of playing melee, but you'll still be using the Whipclaw, and this is just the stat stick for it. For Focus School, I ran Zenuric a few times just to try it out, but fun fact, you don't have to. If you're running max rank Arcane Energize, you can have fun with anything else. Obviously, we're playing Madurai since we want that extra damage. From Madurai, it doesn't matter too much if you're putting on any extra survivabilities. So you just want to run that for extra damage, mod out the first one, and you're good to go. One more extra thing I want to add here is I was also, while I was doing the showcasing, I had one thing on, and it was a yellow casting speed shard. Let's quickly hop over to our helmet because it just looks way cooler. Let's look at Archon Shards here. So, one casting speed shard, Tau Forged yellow. That's all you need. You do not need two. You'll be totally fine with one. And here's the nice thing. If you want to put any, you don't need anything. But if you want to put on more Archon Shards, you're putting on red shards. You're putting on melee critical damage. That's the only thing you really need. If you found a different build where you're assuming a different ability, you can of course put on one of these shards or 4 of these shards. But the only thing that's going to benefit you in the long run, if you're not able to kill enemies in Steel Path, you're putting on Crimson Red Shards with melee critical damage. It's going to be the big game changer. But again, this build will easily kill everything in Steel Path. You do not need to go for the overkill. And then let's hop right into Steel Path here and look at what we're doing. So I put us into a mod survival here on Steel Path just to showcase how we're setting this up. We spawn in with a decent amount of energy to do everything what we want to. We have enemies coming in, just gonna find a good spot. Here's kind of the main thing. You want to set up your Strangledome in a smart way. I'm casting Nourish here. I'm putting down the Strangledome once here. And now I want to start using my Whipclaw. I have 2 stacks here, getting a few more stacks. So we can put down 2 Strangledomes. I can even put one here. The other one won't despawn until I put up a 3rd one. So what we could do here is we could do one here, and for all enemies coming through exits, we can say, okay, we're doing this strategy where we just have to cycle around, just keep turning and keep hitting our Whipclaw to these 2 spots. And this is where all the loot drops in here in this area. Well, I have an Augment Crystal. So this also makes sure we're hitting everything. What you want to do when you're casting Whipclaw, you see how my primary has this little circle up here? I don't want to hit it in here. I don't want to hit my Whipclaw back here. Because what happens if I hit it back here or up here, it will affect enemies in the Strangledome perfectly. It will affect enemies who are just barely coming in, who might have not been tangled yet, and I'm not getting the full force of our loot. So you always want to hit it maybe in the middle or like a corner that still affects enemies on their side, but not outside of the dome where people are coming in. Biggest enemies are going to be Eximus units. Eximus units don't get hit by Strangledome, they don't get moved, they walk through that and just kill you. So what you want to be doing every time you see one of those, you hit an Ensnare on that. You're also getting a bonus damage over Ensnare within the Strangledome, so just make sure you look out for those green glowing guys. So this is option 2. What you can do here, this is the single entrance way. You can just sit here and keep casting your Whipclaw, and you have your Strangledomes and your Nourish up here. You can walk a little bit forward a little bit, make sure the enemies don't see you too much. This is going to be slower, especially with enemy spawns, compared to the second version, where you have dual entrances, or you're just having this in a large hallway that has multiple spawn points. These enemies will all funnel, if you're watching the map, through this pathway. We'll walk up here and walk through here. The reason is why you don't want to stand at the end of a hallway like this. Enemies from back here will see you, will just stand still and shoot you, and they won't walk into your Strangledome. The other thing is, if I'm Strangledoming over back here, my Whipclaw's not going to reach the back wall walking away from this build, you'll be thinking, okay, I have a pretty good build now. I can sit in the corner and spam my Whipclaw, get some loot, we'll do this and that. But most of the time, especially for Khora mains, that's kind of why I prefer Necros, because he loots all the time all over the place. He's always looting. I don't have to look at anything. I don't have to communicate. Anybody has to be in my Strangledome. For this part, I'm playing with a team. This is Warframe. We're playing with 3 people we can't communicate with, or we don't communicate with, and everybody's just running around the map killing stuff. So how you play Khora in normal game, this is an arbitration mission, for example. What you're doing is you're putting down your Strangledome first. Nourish is always up, and then you're spamming either your Whipclaw, or you can even spam your melee weapon if you have Contagion Saw. Other thing I'm also doing is when I have teammates around me, I'm playing with a high damage Saren here, playing with other high damage multiple nuke frames together with. I want to get in front of my teammates and cast down Strangledome. So as soon as the kill comes in on enemies, we get the loot and I don't have to worry about killing anything myself. To sum up everything we just talked about, I cannot believe I've been going on for 22 minutes here. It's crazy. Like, I didn't plan on having this video so long, but it just all came together like this. To sum this up, to especially sum up Khora here, she is the best loot output frame. So if you're looting stuff and everything is within Strangledome, you're getting more loot than with Necros. You're getting more loot than with Atlas. You're getting more loot than with Hildren. Having your Smeeta Kavat is so important, having those mods down. You're just helping yourself a lot. For the gameplay itself, it can be kind of boring, and when you're playing with a team, it can feel like you're chasing behind everybody else. The Whipclaw is pretty fun melee, since it also does tons of damage, and hitting all those enemies at once within Strangledome is super satisfying. For me, Khora really fills that niche. Okay, we have a frame for a single area of effect where you can say, okay, we're getting loot in this area, and if we're playing with a team, especially with friends in like an endo farm mission, we can really work on that together. The normal synergy will be a Nidus to pull stuff in, because it has the better pull, and then we have Necros and Khora to grab extra loot and to desecrate those targets. Especially or in another mission where we have an Atlas with Orgaze, and we're helping out here, will be amazing as a loot farm frame, and she's also good in certain scenarios if you just want to play on your own and say, hey, I need some Argon crystals, I'm just going to sit here for a while and do this. Perfect frame. For other areas, especially as you saw in this other clip, if I'm playing with a team, if I'm playing with 2 nuke frames, a Hildren and a Saren, and I'm trying to run around and just find enemies, it can be super, super stressful, because you always have to, okay, guys, cast Strangledome, and she's just kind of outclassed here. That's why Necros for everyday play is just far, far superior with a perfect build. If you want to see that, check out this video. I have an amazing build here. Necros can do anything here. Not saying that Khora isn't valid though. This will conclude the video, guys. I hope you all had fun watching. To all of you still left here at this point, you are legends. I really appreciate all the support. Do let me know how you build your own Khora. I'm really interested. And stay tuned for the next one. That's about it. Thanks, guys.